The UN says a Nigerian UN peacekeeper has been killed and another injured by unidentified assailants in Timbuktu in northern Mali. A separate incident in Tessalit left 3 Chadian peacekeepers injured. Nearly 200 members of the UN mission have died since it was set up in 2013, making it the deadliest peacekeeping operation in the world. Peacekeepers were deployed to Mali after Islamist militants seized the north of the country in 2012. Joining me via Skype for more on this is a consulting fellow at Africa Program, Chatham House, Paul Melly. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Melly. Now, the killing of this Nigerian makes about 200 UN mission that has died in their efforts to ensure stability in Mali. How much impact will this make or have on the stability of the country?
Well, I think this individual incident won't change anything in the very short term, but it's a reminder of the huge security problems that still face Mali, despite the presence of a big UN force of more than 12,000 soldiers and with police, the presence of a big French force, the Barkhane force, and the presence of the new force that's been formed by the G5 Sahel countries of the Sahel region. Despite all those military deployments, jihadist groups still manage to mount regular attacks targeting these security forces and, of course, targeting the Malian security forces and raiding across the borders into other countries, particularly Niger and Burkina Faso. So the security problems are daunting. And we had a further reminder just a few days ago with an attack in the southeast of Mali, near the Burkina border, in an area that up till then had been regarded as peaceful and secure. Now, with a late night attack on a rural police post in a small town, and this is the sort of thing that it's very, very difficult to defend against. So it's going to be really difficult.
Now, Paul, if you would allow me, the Secretary General of the UN is asking that perpetrators be brought to justice, saying that the country does not have total control over, the government rather does not have total control over the country. Can the perpetrators be brought to justice?
Well, they can certainly bring some perpetrators to justice because fairly regularly these different military forces that are trying to restore security in Mali do take prisoners. And of course, some of the jihadist fighters and some mixed up in other groups, community militias and other armed groups, tend to be just teenagers or young men who, as it were, have been led astray. But there are occasionally more senior figures who are captured, and it would be quite important to see some of those actually put on trial, brought publicly to account. That's something that we tend not to see. We hear regular reports of people being captured, but we don't actually hear subsequently of a process of public justice that would call them to account. Another critical factor, though, is to strengthen local grassroots community reconciliation, because some of these armed groups depend on a degree of acquiescence or tolerance from elements of the community. And the chances of that reconciliation process may have been helped a little bit by a recent political development, which is that an important part of the opposition has agreed to join what is almost a government of national unity. It doesn't quite include everyone, but some of President Keita's fiercest critics have agreed to join the administration in an effort to promote more reconciliation, and a national dialogue process is about to be launched. That could be as important as any security measures in terms of trying to reduce the violence which is spreading over such a large area of Mali at the moment.
Now, quickly, Paul, before we let you go, what should countries do now, seeing that there have been targets, or their missions have been targeted in Mali?
Well, in the short term, it's just going to be a case of holding very strong to the military positions that they've got. But beyond that, it really will be a case of putting pressure on the Malian government to engage very seriously in trying to develop community reconciliation efforts. and to try and restore, however difficult it may be, restore public services, basic services in the central and northern regions of the country that have suffered the most violence. Because one of the reasons why young men sometimes get led astray and mixed up in these armed groups is because there's a shortage of employment, because there's a shortage of education and health treatment and other basic services. So getting those basic services restored so that people in Mali, in the areas hit by violence, begin to see that the state can do positive things for their everyday lives in practical terms, that's probably the best way to try and long-term develop stability. And that's what countries such as Nigeria and Chad, who have suffered these recent casualties for their forces involved in the UN force in Mali, need to be doing, is maintaining the pressure and showing the region needs to show as a whole, West Africa as a whole needs to show that it's engaged in pushing Malian politicians to take reconciliation forward.
All right, Paul Melly, Consulting Fellow at Africa Chatham House. Thank you for your time.